Well, I'm back. I'm not sure if anyone else is. Oh, Chris is kind of back, but with no
I'm
sound.
kind of back. Yes.
Oh,
Apologies, folks. My entire house just took a hit of some sort. Like a phone pole got hit, maybe someplace. That was very unusual. My apologies. Nothing had power for quite a bit. Sorry.
you lost
The
power, not just
I
internet.
lost power and internet. Yeah,
Fun.
like phone
Fun.
pole hit kind of thing is what I'm thinking. That unpleasant
Yes,
kind
yes.
of event. So here we are. Apologies for the technical difficulties. And as usual, I have overrun time baked in.
Yeah, right, right, exactly. I did. I shared a joke, so so everything's okay.
Mm.
And all right, so back to where we were. In theory, so I had just added the MariaDB deployment config. And then I went to actually I'll just do it again because it's not like it's a big deal. Um, and it's angry with me because it doesn't have any storage and any passwords. Um, so I'm going to create a new storage claim. And as I mentioned, we did a whole episode about this. Be nice if I had like a list of all the episodes like next to me, and then I could say, "Hey, go watch this episode," and that'll be all about this. Maybe next time.
Huh.
Um,
Just
all
put it
right,
to
so
playlist.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have a tendency to like label the first part of the thing with the thing type, which because Kubernetes knows what the thing types are is kind of pointless, but I do it anyway. So, bear with me. So I'm going to say Nextcloud DB data, and then I'm going to jump back over here because I need to know where to put the persistent storage, which if anybody's used MySQL, you probably know this already, or Maria for that matter.
Mm.
But just for, this is how you would do it, right? And we're going to say, hey, let's call it, 5 gigs. Actually, let's make it 2 gigs. Um, and I give it a path for where it's going to store it. And then you can actually do a subpath within that, which sorry, the subpath is within the persistence, the volume, not in the container. So, but there you go. And so I'm going to save that, which is going to attach it to that deployment or so to this Nextcloud DB thing, right? But then, and what I usually do is I do this first so that I get less errors, but I forgot. So we are going to create a secret, um, and we're going to call this something brilliant like MySQL creds. And these are going to be some amazing credentials. Um, but again, we go back here to find out, okay, these are the required ones. There's all this optional stuff that we could do, but we're not going to do those right now. Um, so we're just going to kind of cut and paste or put these in here. If I can find the text box to type in, and spell it correctly. And then just kind of keep adding them until we have them all configured. And we're going to say Nextcloud secret because that's leet. Um, please tell me you all know what leet is. If you don't,
Oh,
please
come
ask in the
on.
chat.
Yeah, please ask in the chat if you don't.
And go see
Subpath
the
is
movie
like having to
Hackers.
say the cluster nodes file system.
No, so the subpath is so the volume mount that you get is just basically, for lack of a better term, block storage. It's not actual block storage, but like a block of storage. In that storage, you can say, okay, I'm going to make a data directory. I'm going to make a chickens directory. I'm going to make a cows directory. Um, and that's what that path is for. So you can kind of have one volume that has all your different kinds of content. I don't know if there's a recommendation, but I have never seen anybody use storage that way. They almost always go and get separate volumes for each of the pieces of content. Um,
Is the subpath a new feature in 4.6?
I don't know.
I don't.
I'm primarily familiar with 4.5 and 4.6. I'm not real
Nah,
familiar with older versions.
I forget when things arrive in versions.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, it's going to be a upstream thing, I think,
Oops.
right?
I cannot find these text boxes because that gray text. I'm just going to call the database name MySQL, or sorry, Nextcloud. Um, and then I'm not going to use the root password because we don't need it.
Hmm.
Okay, so now I have this set of creds, and I can add the secret to a workload, and we are going to just attach it to the Nextcloud DB. We're not going to modify anything about its prefix. So like we could put, like if we wanted to, maybe we had multiple databases or something, we could put different, we could put them in different, like with different prefixes or whatever, so that wouldn't collide. Okay, so now I gave it some passwords, and every time I make one of these changes, if you notice, it's actually redeploying the component each time. And so theoretically, look at that. It's all blue now because I actually gave it the things that it requires. And oddly enough, it likes it when you give the things it requires. All right, so now we have a database. And let me look at that. In my notes, it even says do database creds first. But did I? No. um,
Of
so yeah.
course.
Uh-huh.
Why
I
would you
love that.
follow your notes, Professor?
Right? Right. Um, okay, so now we are going to did I not actually put this one in my notes? So this is a long one. So let me just see if I have a better place to not necessarily copy and paste this from, but know what the flag is. Okay, so now we're going to use this command that says new app, except we're okay. Whoop, that didn't work at all. So I'm going to say OC new app, and then I'm going to give the app an app. So this is where I find a little bit of the terminology confusing. Now Chris Short is laughing at me.
Sorry. Narendra just dropped in chat. Professor got schooled.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Yep. Uh-huh.
Heavens.
Yeah, with friends like these.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Um,
all right. So I say new app. So this is one of the things I find a little confusing. So in a project, we have a set of applications which then come together to form the application. Um, you know, the more appropriate term, right, in a sense, would be something like the term service, except that that word is a keyword in Kubernetes, meaning basically a front end for an application. So I find the terminology a little confusing, but suffice to say, you have a project that is made up of applications. Those applications come together to form the thing that you're trying to build, let's just say. And so I just give it a name. And so like the Nextcloud DB, this is just going to be called Nextcloud. Maybe it should be called Nextcloud Web. Um, then the next thing I give it is a strategy. So this is not required, but in this case it is, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to go into my Git repo and uh, build the content from a Docker file. And one thing I couldn't find a flag for on the command line is how to give it a different file name. So I actually had to use the word Docker file rather than container file, which is what we've been using pretty consistently. Um, so then I give it the repo that we want, and a branch, which is obviously optional. So the repo is the episodes, and then I meant to mention this more towards the beginning, but somebody in the last show, I think, asked if they could see the code and follow along, and you can go to that repo right there, and I'll even drop it in here. Switch to the S1E18 branch, and you can see the stuff I'm doing if you're interested. Um, so so we give it the branch name. That's what this pound S118 is. And then, sorry, switching windows. Um, And then we need to pass it. Of course, I just lost where I was. Oh, and then obviously this content isn't at the root, it's in a subdirectory. So we have to give it a context dir, it's called. And so inside S1E18, there's a directory called Nextcloud, and in there is where our actual Docker file is. So I pass all these flags so that it can basically find the Docker file content. And just by way of, well, this is going to take a second, so it'll be hard to show you. But we'll just give it a minute and come back to it. And okay, so one of the things I like by default, the application is not exposed. So we just kind of, it's just kind of creating it for us, right? And so obviously creating it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to run. It just means it's creating it. So that's cool. And if we look over here, hey, look, this new application has gotten created. And it's building a build. There was something else I was going to point out, but now I forget what it was. Oh, just to show you what OpenShift sees when it goes and pulls all that content, it's just this directory. So if you look, I'm just in this S1E18 Nextcloud directory that is on the S1E18 branch coming from the, episodes repo. So that's all it sees. And the only thing that is a little bit unfortunate in this is there's not a lot of caching, so it takes a while to build. But I did give this machine a whole bunch of juice, so hopefully it won't take too long. One thing I did want to point out, though, from here is pay attention to this line, and then this line down here. The reason that I'm pointing those out is because I ran into a bunch of problems because while it was telling me that it was getting PHP 7.4, it actually replaced it with straight UBI 8. And it did that because I didn't give it the creds file. And so it wasn't able to get to registry.redhat.io to actually get the container I wanted or the base image I wanted. But it silently just went on its merry way. And then failed miserably because the base image I was getting wasn't the one I was expecting. So I spent a bunch of fun time debugging user ownership issues and things like that, which were not correct because I was getting the wrong base image. So that's another thing I'm planning to file with the maintainers to say, hey, this should be at least a warning. Like you should at least get some pop-up or something that says, hey, I went to go do this thing, but the base image you requested was not available, so I replaced it with this base image. If they think it's good that it just continues on its merry way, and maybe it is, that's fine, but I should at least get some sort of warning that says, hey, you idiot, you didn't make it so I could get to the base image that you asked for, so I went and grabbed this one instead. So this is going to cook for a bit. However, what that means is maybe we should do level up points or internet points while we're waiting for it.
Yeah.
Are there any questions we should answer?
So this one just came in off of this topic, but a few weeks ago you went through a vSphere install with the new static IP option for 4.6. Did you ever get that working?
I don't think that was on this show.
It wasn't on this show. I think that was the Andrew's show. No, yes, it was Andrew's show. He did get it working. He will explain it next show,
Which is
it will be in the new year, I think, or
okay.
next week. I'm sorry. Yeah, next week, the 16th. If I'm reading the PTO calendar correctly. Yes, I think so.
I don't know what just happened.
What happened to you?
My whole CRC just crashed.
Oh God.
Yeah, well,
this show's going
wouldn't
great.
Be a show. Yeah. I thought you said Tuesdays were your new Mondays.
God. 2020 is just my new Monday, man.
I honestly don't know what just happened. Checking for disk because that's half the time my problem. All right, that seems fine. Um, Here we can even debug this together. Um,
Hang on. Yeah. All right.
all right. So first thing I do is always check disk because 9 times out
Yeah.
of 10 that's my problem.
That's your problem. Yeah.
Um, this is on a separate host, so let's just check the VM that it's or the machine, like the bare metal that it's running on, and just check that disk, which I can't imagine it's a problem. Nope, we got 21 gigs there. We have a pretend 54 gigs here because it's a sparse file, but still it should be fine. Um, so that does not seem to be the problem. We are going to check and see if what CRC reports as its status. And it thinks it's running. Let's see if what happens if we try connecting directly.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, so at least it's not a routing problem, right? So I know I'm
Right.
getting the same error from the local machine. Okay, so that's cool. So my inclination is to stop it and restart it. Let me just check one more thing.
Yeah. Like, do you have some swap consumption going nuts or something?
No, so
Okay.
4096 used of
Yeah.
swap. There's actually, I think I gave this machine 32 gigs of RAM and like 8 cores, and then I gave the CRC inside it like 26 gigs of RAM or something
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
6 cores. So it should be doing fine.
Ah.
Um,
Okay. Hmm.
so that's weird.
That is odd.
So I think I'm gonna bail out and just say CRC stop, and restart it and cross my fingers that it's gonna work. In the meantime,
Sweet, sweet
let's
internet
talk some
points.
points. Yeah. Um, where is my window? Oh, here it is. All
So
right.
for folks that are new, do you want to tell
Oh yeah,
them?
good
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
Before we reveal, so as a way to kind of encourage participation and encourage people coming to the show and that kind of stuff, we we like to give out sweet internet points. And way back in the day, this like I don't know if it was invented by Slashdot, but that's where I remember it from. But basically, getting internet karma, which we try not to use that term anymore
No.
because it does have a kind of a religious meaning.
A
But
little.
yeah, a little bit for a lot of people. So we just
Yeah.
talk about it points, and so I think Reddit is kind of the most common place to get kind of internet points, or at least
Mm-hmm.
jokingly referred to as internet points. So the idea here is a little competition to kind of say, hey, who has the most internet points? And the way you get internet points is by attending the show and filling out the codes that I'm going to show you in a second. Um,
The codes
and
are generated with what?
my YubiKey,
Of
which
course.
if you do have to use two-factor auth and YubiKey supports it, I highly recommend them. I have the Nano, and it basically just sits in a USB slot, and I just tap it whenever I need the code. I even ran the fact that I use it by our security team because I was like, "Hey, the physical hardware is there," and their response was, "Well, it still doesn't defeat the point of two-factor auth." Because there's still the piece right, and the piece you own. So even if somebody boosted my laptop, which happened to me a couple of years ago when I was in the Czech Republic,
Oh,
um, it doesn't matter because you still have the piece
right.
So it's totally fine to use it per our security team. Your security team may or may not be as enlightened. Um, so take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Uh,
But
to be clear, I have three of these things, right? That I use. One is actually compatible with my phone. One I use for certain accounts. The other I use for other accounts. So yeah, like this is a common security tool.
you have a YubiKey for your phone?
Yeah, I have a
Oh,
YubiKey that plugs into my iPhone. They have it's called I think it's the 5CI
Oh, I'll have
YubiKey.
to go check that out. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I use
it's got
FreeOTP,
yeah.
which was actually originally developed by a Red Hatter, who has been kind of maintaining it off and on, but I think has actually now been kind of taken over by the community. Um, which supports Google Auth, it supports RAuth, as well as a number of others. Um, so yeah. Sorry, I was laughing at Narendev's comment. But yeah, so what I do is so the YubiKey obviously generates a 6-digit code, so I use that to create the codes. I did in my little spreadsheet full of codes set a unique filter to make sure that in theory I could get the same code again, but to make sure that that doesn't happen. So long story short, today we still have Netherlands Hackem at the top of
Mhm.
the pack with 2,100 points. Um, and oh, by the way, so if you want to catch up to the people who are at the top of the pack, you can go watch past episodes, get the codes from them in the show, and then fill them out. So there's no like time limit on doing them. You can also get points for filing issue requests of like show ideas. And then the reason that Netherlands Hackem pulled ahead actually is because they actually filed a PR with the containers for the Nextcloud version we did a couple of weeks ago. Actually, while we're talking, let me start this again, and hopefully that will do its thing. What? uh, all right, so it's telling me that libvirt-d is not running. So let's.
Well, that'll stop it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's restart that and see how it's doing. Well, that's further than I got last time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to Sweet Internet points. Okay, so that seems to be cooking. Okay, so then we have our second two leaders, Noah Friction and Narendev. Narendev, who is here. I haven't seen Noah Friction today. And Joe Fuzz is also right up there, and then a few people who I think we haven't seen back in a while on the show. But so this is our leaderboard. If you want to get the Sweet Internet points for today, you can. Now I completely don't have the
You move
window with
something.
the
Yeah.
code because technology. Let's see.
There you go. No.
All right, no, it's because of the stupid. Yeah, it's because of the stupid new presenter view thing.
Uh, Changes in behaviors will always impact people in weird and unusual ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's why it logged me out, so it could give me this new
Oh,
feed.
yeah. So you could get the new version. That makes
Right.
sense because I was logged out of everything yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, so putting the code in the chat now that I got it. There we go. Sorry. Um,
There you go.
okay, so that's today's code. Like I said, if you watch past episodes, you can get prior codes. The other thing I wanted to do today, which we're going to do periodically, is highlight a couple of new people with Sweet Internet points.
Sweet.
And how do you read? Is it Miclio? I think like you're supposed to read that as Leetspeak.
Michael? Michael?
Michael. Okay.
Michael? I don't know.
So yeah, and then Phil, and then Gary F. Are recent additions to Sweet Internet points. And we would like to see more, and so hopefully you'll go and find some of your own Sweet Internet points. And someday maybe we'll have gifts for the people with the most points.
Maybe even T-shirts. Who knows?
Maybe even T-shirts like the ones we're wearing. But we're not promising anything. All we know
No.
is we love to give out the internet points. And if you go to our Discord server periodically, I will feature kind of the top 10 or top 20 of the people who are collecting them. Oh, and one thing I want to keep bear in mind or share, right, is that I actually particularly noticed this on this set of new Sweet Internet points is there are dark horses. So when you go and fill out the form, if you say private for the name field, I won't mention you in any way.
Right.
So you can collect the internet points and not kind of share them with anybody if that's what you're interested. And in fact, we had somebody do that and kind of leap to the top of the pack, scaring Narendev quite a bit, I think. Um, so that is definitely an option. So this is not, and you can kind of put in whatever you want for sharing the for your name. Obviously, if it's of questionable taste, I will not be sharing it live as well. Um, and all right, so sometimes, so we're back to starting OpenShift cluster. Sometimes that's a lie, as in it's already started. So let's
Right.
try.
Let's see.
And apparently it is not.
No.
So we'll have to wait a little bit longer. Do we have any fun, interesting questions?
So I'm gonna screw up this name so bad, and I'm so sorry. Mir Sakawat Hassan has asked for more free ways to use OpenShift, right? So I mentioned OKD.io, the OpenShift playgrounds. I forget the
Mhm.
time limit on those, but there's various ways you can use OpenShift for a time box amount of time, and then CRC, which is the tool that you're using right now, which is
Which is the first time I've actually ever seen it fail, to be clear.
yeah, it's odd that libvirt failed. I think we're going to have
Yeah.
some issues even with trying to bring this back up if libvirt is failing in the background. Like, can you
Uh,
run a PS, a UXF, WW, make sure it's still running?
yeah. One thing in CRC's defense is that there is a update out there that I have not taken because usually I don't like to
Ooh,
risk that immediately before a show.
of course, but it could have fixed something.
It
So
could
who
have fixed
knows?
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I think I've already.
Sorry. So you wanted me to
Go ahead.
try?
Just get a PS and make sure that it's still running.
Oh,
However, UPS, how? Oh man, that was bad. However, you UPS.
I always stay on battery wise.
Yeah.
Well,
So
let's see.
yes, there's a link to CRC in the chat for everybody, and it enables you a few different ways to use uh, OpenShift right there in your local environment, however you have it. Um, and you can install it and use it through VS Code as well, through some wonderful extensions we have, which I need to open and get the name of real quick because I forget it. I think it's OpenShift connector, but I could be wrong.
It's completely tanked.
libvirt?
No, CRC.
Oh man.
Ignore my passwords.
Oh gosh.
Well, as we've discussed before, I have bigger problems if you can get to the machine that.
Yeah,
Oh
true.
no, you know what? My link is bad. I think
Oh,
because it's the OAuth link. Yeah, there we go. It's better.
okay. There we go.
I apparently I
No?
lied.
Hmm.
Let's try cookies.
So here's the link for so it's
Where did
CRC
they
in
want?
place of Kubernetes. So Mac CRC. So let's explain OpenShift, which is kind of high level real quick. So OpenShift takes Kubernetes, and then there's this thing called. This is the way I like to explain it, at least, because I'm a CNCF ambassador. The Cloud Native Computing Foundation has what they call trail map of things that you'll need to run, a productive, containerized orchestration environment. And OpenShift is Kubernetes plus some opinionated views of how to manage, operate, and scale clusters and maintain them and keep them stable. So adding all those features creates OpenShift, the entire solution, and all of it is open source upstream kind of deal. OpenShift brings it all together. The upstream of that, because we open source everything that we do here at Red Hat, the upstream of OpenShift is called OKD, which if you saw in chat earlier, the OKD.io link, that will tell you what we're potentially working on in the future kind of deal. I'm trying to think if I got any other props here. So yeah, like to give you an idea, like we look at the container landscape and the cloud native ecosystem landscape, and we build an actual operational Kubernetes distribution, which comes with logging, monitoring, and all the bells and whistles that you'll need to actually keep it going, including a service mesh capability, a serverless capability, or function as a service capability with Knative, and then some developer tools as well, and OC and ODO. So there's an entire ecosystem of tooling around OpenShift because it has all these things built on top of it. And a lot of that is instantiated by this thing called operators, which I'll share a link for real quick. You can get the ebook for free. It's an O'Reilly book, talking all about operators and how to build them. And it's essentially, we had, I think it was last week, a show about what an operator is. It's just taking code that you would normally like do as part of a setup, an upgrade, or an install, and instantiating that as a declarative piece of code, and a CR can CRD, creates CR, cluster resource. So a custom cluster resource so that it can do those operational tasks to take that workload off of you so you can go focus on some other things that are more difficult to,
Right, the whole SRE
right.
model built
Yeah.
into the code base itself, so that you can kind of go and have all those maintenance scripts that you normally have. If there's a failure or whatever, you can kind of say, here's what to do in these scenarios. And
Mhm.
so, and what I mean, at least for me, is that the experts are primarily building them for you. So, even if you have to do one custom, that's good and everything else. But if you want to run a production instance of Postgres, for example, Crunchy has a pretty good idea of how to do that well, and so
Right.
using their operator gives you that love. This is actually one of the things that when we talk about RHEL, for example, when you install an RPM, um, one of the nice things about that is it's configured in a way, let's say Apache, right? It's configured in a way that is ready for production. And the people who are deciding how to do that are the ones who maintain Apache. So they know Apache way better than most people. And I really like that same concept. That is what kind of operators are bringing to the table. And then if you are doing your own custom one, you can do that as well. One thing I wanted to add, speaking of service mesh, is my idea for the show, kind of not the one when right after the new year, but the one after that probably,
Hmm.
is to take this setup and integrate service mesh so that we can do MTLS
Ah,
between the web server and the database server,
right.
um, and show how easy it is to integrate that secure layer within OpenShift by essentially just checking a box. It's pretty cool. And then maybe we can do some routing with showing off some different versions of the Nextcloud instance. Like, we're using 20.02, but maybe 20.04 will have come out by then. And we can kind of show how we can shift traffic
Hmm.
using Canary and that kind of stuff. Which I think would be super cool. I would like some quick feedback. We saw somebody, I thought it was a Mike, just drop in. Max, sorry. That you're newish to containers. Um, and so definitely let us know what you would like to talk about, because that's what this show's kind of targeting, right? Is like
Hmm.
people who are new to containers. And to answer your question, is CRC in place of Kubernetes? So CRC is code ready containers, which is a kind of developer install of OpenShift. And OpenShift is a nice wrapper and best practices and what do you call it? Like intelligent defaults
Right.
of the set of content that is in the Kubernetes world, uh, come together into one, kind of easily installable application. So Kubernetes is like, or like, actually, are some of those projects even strictly under Kubernetes, or are they under CNCF? But
Both. Yeah.
okay, so right, so there's actually this whole mess of projects that are around the ecosystem of Kubernetes, including Kubernetes itself, that are all carried under the CNCF, which is the Container Native. I just blanked. Cloud Foundation, Container Native
Cloud Native Computing
Cloud.
Foundation.
That's it. I was like I know it if I tried to write it, but I couldn't say it out loud. So there's a whole host of projects in that ecosystem, and you can install all of them independently, as basically they're open source, and you can go and check the boxes and install all that. What OpenShift does is brings together what we believe is kind of a best practice guideline of like how to bring all those pieces together for
Mhm.
kind of a base install, which is OpenShift itself. And then we also offer a bunch of the other things that are in that ecosystem, like the service mesh operator, for example, um, as optional things to add on to OpenShift, if you're interested in doing this. So hopefully that
All
answers
right.
Max's question.
Yeah. And we are like out of time essentially, right?
Yes, but
Like the
CRC is
overtime
back.
overtime. Yes.
Um,
And it
so
appears to be working.
I'm pretty sure it is. I was doing something stupid with the API URL. So we already saw how to do storage claims. So just for the sake of brevity, um, we would go through and add storage. A couple things I found were that you need to add this storage for the whole HTML directory. So if you think in normal RHEL land, what would be var www HTML, it's not that directory because I'm just, if you go back and look at the PHP 7.4 container image, um, its root is just not the default one, which is kind of a legacy of Red Hat software collections. Um, but it's in here um, somewhere. But we can easily find it out actually by going here. And what I think is really cool. Oh, we'd have to rebuild. So I can't show you. But
Yeah.
basically the point is, I mean, I can, but we don't really have
Time.
enough time.
Yeah.
So I would add storage, gotta add it for that root directory. And if we do the service mesh one, maybe I'll finish this stuff up. We have some packed content for the next 2 episodes, so I can't go into it immediately. But um, you would add storage for that kind of root directory, but then also a separate one for basically that root directory slash data, because Nextcloud separates its code from your content. So Nextcloud, right, is a file server, so like Dropbox, say. Um, so data is where all the files are, so you can keep those two pieces independent. So you can go and upgrade Nextcloud without affecting your data, which is a good thing, right?
Right.
The other thing that is we're kind of leaving it as an exercise for the reader is if I was running this right now, I can, if you go to a Nextcloud install homepage, it basically says, okay, where is your database? And I can hard code that information in by looking at, oops, and I think I'll be able to see it here, even though I don't have it in the other one. Um, these environment variables are injected into the container for Nextcloud. And the config file should be using these injected uh, environment variables by using getenv in PHP. But I couldn't find a way in that UI of the Nextcloud install to kind of say, no, don't have me hard code it. Let me give you the environment variables where you can get it from. So I had it hard coded, but then I can go back and I can configure the config.php. I mean, the entire source tree is actually coming from basically just a Nextcloud. I tart it and xz'd it to make it a bit smaller, but that's where the entire source tree is coming from. So I could just change the config.php in there to use getenv, to use the um, environment variables, which is what I should do, but I hadn't done that because I wanted to just show you it kind of working. Um, and in general, right, what we've developed here is a dev version of the Nextcloud dealio, right? If you actually wanted to deploy this to production, I would recommend where is my link? Do I have it here? So I thought I had the link, but there is a Nextcloud. Oh, let me just see if I can find it. Um, uh, sorry, here it is. Nextcloud has a Docker, actually has a, oh, how did I get there? Has a set of Docker deployments. So for example, for version 20, they have the Apache version, they have FPM with Alpine, they have FPM. This is the maintainers actually maintaining this. So if you actually wanted to deploy it in containers in production, I would probably at least start from these rather than the one we've been going through. We've been doing it as a learning exercise. However, there is a good one out there that I would recommend if you wanted to use it in like production. Um, I'll just throw that link in the chat in case anybody else wants it. But then we'll wrap it up there for the show because we're already well over time.
Way over. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll learn more next week. Same bad time, same bad channel, as we say. See you soon.
Yes, it was an S2I image, Netherlands Hackem. And that's why it's in opt app root. And yeah, thanks everybody for coming. And we just keep talking.
See y'all. Thank you.